Hi, I'm Allie with PotomacBeads.com and PotomacBeads.eu, and today I want to show you how to use some drop duos making this fancy Grace bracelet. The Grace bracelet is based on components that kind of have a cross look to them, hence the Grace name, but you can also put them on the diagonal. We're going to be working with Montees as well, learning how to center the Montees and to work with those multi-hole beads. To begin our design, I want you to have your thread and on a size 12 needle, and we're going to begin actually with our center here. So you can see that little tie here. I'm going to keep on the end of my thread some additional thread, that way I can add the clasp as I create these components. You can create the components individually, which I'll go over, or you can connect them and keep going and keep connecting on. To create the component, we're going to begin with our 8 drop duos, and the drop duos that I have here, we're going to pick up 8, and we're picking them up in this white Lila gold by the point. I don't have a stop bead on because I'm going to tie a knot. So I have 8 that I want to pick up. I have 4 on. And once you have your initial 8 on, again through that point, you're going to let it drop down towards the end of the thread. At the end of the thread, again, if you want to, you can leave some extra thread. That way you can attach to a clasp, or you can have your component just kind of end and link them together with a jump ring, or actually glue it on. It would look really cute as a post earring. And I have those 8 drop duos, and I'm literally tying them into a loop by tying a square knot. From here, I'm actually going to add the Montee that sits at the top. The Montee is going to sit basically between groups of 2. So I have the Montee that is going to sit right in the middle and leave an opening and sewing through 2. I'm coming out of a bead here after tying the knot, and you're going to pick up a 15, then your Montee through either hole, and then a 15. Switch over to the very opposite side. So you can see exactly the opposite side, cutting it in half, taking 4 beads to one side, 4 beads to the other, and I'm going to sew through 2 beads towards the left-hand side. So you might need to do this one at a time. I'm going to sew through 1, move your seed beads and your Montee to the top of the design, sew through the second bead, and then after I come out those 2 beads, I'm going to sew through the second hole of the Montee. Give a nice little tight pull, making sure then that the Montee is sitting facing up, because you don't want your crystal facing down. Add a 15, sew through the opposing hole of the Montee. If you haven't worked with Montees before, they have that cross section of a hole, so they have one hole going this way and one hole going the other way. Coming out the Montee then, and this is an SS20 Montee, which is about 4.6 millimeter. I put on another one of my 15-0 seed beads, and then I'm going to sew into 2 more of my drop duos. And again, I'm going opposite side, cutting it kind of in half. I have 4 at the top and 4 at the bottom, and I'm going to sew into those next 2 drop duos that sit to the left. Again, if you need to, you can sew one at a time. Making sure, so you can see I kind of hold down my Montee to make sure that those seed beads sit nice and properly where they're supposed to. And I have my thread and needle then coming out right above one of my first seed beads. From here, I'm going to step up from the inner hole to the outer hole of the drop duo. As we step up along the drop duo then, we'll go in and we'll be adding our second row of our drop duos in this Lila, or those white iris color rather, that nice purple. We're going to add those right above where the seed beads are, and then where the drop duos in the Lila Gold Luster are, we're going to put a 15 just between them in order to kind of pull them together. So coming out this drop duo, I have another drop duo that I'm going to add because I'm right at that seed bead portion. I'm going to sew through the second hole of the next drop duo, one of those original 8s. Make sure that it's going through the point and that it's facing nice and tightly in, and there's not a lot of extra thread exposed. From here then, between the 2 drop duos that don't have a seed bead right below them, I'm going to add a seed bead along the top. sew into the next second hole of the original color of the drop duo, and add another drop duo in that purple, that white iris color. Push it kind of down in place. Make sure you don't see any extra of your green wildfire thread. And I'm using the wildfire in the 0.006. As I sew through, then I add another one of my 15s right along the top. Add another one of my drop duos. And I'm going to show you a trick. We're actually going to be decorating the outside of the drop duos. You can continue around and then take your thread back through all of these beads. Or I'll show you on the last one here kind of how to do it while you're actually sewing on these second row of drop duos. So I have my last 15 that I'm adding. Now I'm going to sew on my last drop duo. This time as I sew in my drop duo, I'm going to kind of push it down into place, add 3 of my 15s in that galvanized gold color, go into the top hole of that same purple drop duo, and this is going to add those little seed beads along the end. I'm going to add 3 more of them and then sew back through. The reason I didn't show this right away is because sometimes it's hard for people to get the tension correct and get that drop duo into place if they add the seed beads while they're kind of creating. So I'm going to go through now and tighten up that thread. And as I take the thread then, I'm going to take this thread and needle and sew through the next drop duo. Making sure that thread doesn't get mixed in to my design. And that seed beads then are going to sit right along the edge. Now if you want to have a nice tighter component, here's where we're going to go back in. We add our last 15. Go through that first hole of the drop duo that you added in this row. And as I'm coming out there, now I'm going to spin around and add in my seed beads. So I'm going through, adding 3 seed beads, catching onto the top hole of the outer row of the drop duos, so that purple color, adding 3 more, sewing through the bottom hole of the drop duo after decorating it. Give a nice tight pull. And then we're going to sew through, basically retracing through that second hole of the first line of drop duos all the way over to the next purple bead to add the seed beads along the edge. So I'm just going back through here. So you can add them along the edge as you add them, or again, to make a little bit nicer, tighter component, you can do what I'm doing now and kind of backtrack through the thread, adding a second piece of thread through each of these drop duos, and then coming through the drop duo and add the 3 seed beads along the side. After you add them along the one side, sew through the top hole, add them to the second side, sew through the bottom hole, give a little tight pull so you make sure there's no extra thread showing there, and they'll sit in a little bit of a point, almost like a diamond, and then sew through on and come out the next drop duo bead. As I create then this first component, what I'm going to do is sew back along the thread lines and simply sew the 2 thread ends together. This is going to be your starter. If you want to, you can also add on a clasp at this point, but I'm going to have one component that basically doesn't have any thread exposed and is my starter. From here, I'm going to build additional components, always linking on to the last component that was created. So I have the initial component here that was created, and I'm going to have this starter component. If you want to, you can link them opposite. You can link them on the corners as you're working with them, or you can link them along the sides as well to create that nice kind of bridge. You can also throw in another bead as you're linking them. If you want to add another drop, you can add another drop along those links as well. I'm going to alternate it and link them in by kind of that cross and then the flower, cross flower design as we continue going on. To link them together then, what you are going to need is some seed beads. Depending on how you link them together, that's kind of up to you, and your design will be determined by that. Like I said, if you want to link it on the corner, link it on the sides, link it opposite, that again is up to you. What I'm going to be doing is linking opposite. I'm coming out of one of the 15-0 seed beads that sits right between some of the exterior drops. From there, I'm going to add a 15, 2 11s, and then I'm going to add 2 more 15s. Catching over them, we're going to link through the 15, the drop duo, and the 15 that are already there. And that's going to create my connection point here. From here, going back through, we're going to do 2 11s, or I'm sorry, 2 15s, 2 11, 1 15. Link back into that 11-0 seed bead that sits between the drop duos. That's going to create my first link to link these two projects together. When I do my third component that I'm linking on, I'm going to link on in the same fashion, coming over to the drop duo and basically mimicking that link design as I create and get them linked in from one to the other. So you're basically going to be making a lot more sets, and instead of cutting off the thread total and starting with a new one, what you're going to be doing is link on to the older one. I'm going to make another one and I'll show you how I start the link from the other side. So showing another one of the connection points, I connected already to show you the gist of switching up the direction by which we actually attach. And I'm ready to add my next one. I'm coming out of my component through the 15-0 seed bead that is after the drop duo. I'm going to add that same pattern of 2 15s, then 2 11s, 1 15, and grabbing on to that single 15 there. Coming out the 15 then, I'm going to add the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to add 1 15, 2 11s, 2 15s, and sew through the 15, drop, and 15 out the other side. And that gets my next connection. So when you look at your connection, then you can see the alternating pattern of it facing kind of upright into that diamond and then a square, diamond, square, diamond, square. So I have about 2 more components that I need to make, and then I'll show you how we're going to basically start a new piece of thread in order to add our clasp. To finish the Miyuki bracelet, on the starter side, what I did was come out of the last drop duo, add 3 of my 15-0s, then 1 11-0, followed by 24 more 11-0s, back through the 11-0, 3 more of the 15s, and then back just like we were doing and reinforcing that thread. Pull the thread down further and then tied it off along the back. What I'm going to do then on the other side is add my button. So I have my Aztec gold cup button, and flipping the bracelet around here, you can see that nice design of the alternating the angles which with the component sits. And you can, like I said, go that they're all sitting the same direction. You can change them up. That is up to you. I'm starting with a new piece of thread because I tied off that beginner thread. And what I'm going to do is start back a little bit, going through the first hole of the last drop duo. This is also if you need to add thread to the other side, how you're going to start that as well. From here, I'm going to go up through the 15s that sit along the side of the drop duo. And after I go through those 15s, I'm going to sew through the drop duo. And just like if I was adding kind of another component on, I'm going to come out the 15-0 seed bead. From here, I'm going to get ready to put on the cup button, which is going to mimic that pattern that I did on the other side. On the other side, we used 3 of our 15-0 seed beads. Then I'm going to use 1 of my 11-0. I'm going to switch back to 15 O's using 3 more. Go up through the bottom of the cup button. And as I come out the top of the cup button, I'm going to use one of my Montees that I have left. So it just sits kind of right in the middle there. I'm going to sew through that one hole of the Montee, making sure that that crystal then is sitting up as I come down the other side. Push that in the middle there. And what I will be able to do is I'm going to be able to actually kind of reinforce and pull that down as I come back through and catch the other hole of the Montee. Coming out the back side then of the cup button, I want you to add 3 more 15-0 seed beads. Go back through the 11-0 seed bead towards the bracelet. Give a nice tight pull at this point to tighten up that Montee as well as tighten up the button. 3 more 15s get added to your needle, and then you're going to sew through the 15, drop 15. We're going to reinforce this button, going back through all of the 15s, up through the button. And as we come out the center of the button there, you can see how that Montee is kind of sitting off to the side. We're going to go through the other hole of the Montee and out the other side. That's going to pull the Montee so it's facing downward as we go through the cup button on the other side. When you go through the cup button on the other side, if you can, also go through the 15s that sit below it. And as I'm going through the Montee, I'm just making sure that my thread is sitting correctly. Push that Montee down into place so it's not popping up anymore. And then what I'm going to do is tie off my thread further back. If you want to, you can get it reinforced with 1 more trip around. I'm going to go back through the 11 and down the 3 15s on the side. Tie off then just like I did with the other ones further along the project, or if you can, make it back to the beginning area of that last component. You can tie off there, tying off the threads, and then you'll have your nice button and Montee to go along and close up the bracelet. After you burn down your threads and you have everything kind of hidden along the back, that your Miyuki bracelet is finished. And you can see kind of how it is worn on me. You can put those links closer together, you can change them up, and this is just an idea for you, kind of how to do these components. Like I said, I think they would be really sweet little stud earrings as well. So that's a fun challenge if anybody wants to do that. For the Miyuki bracelet, I did end up using the SS20 Montees, like I said earlier, in the that light amethyst color. And as you're working with them, I worked with 8 total. Now this is a little bit big for my wrist, but it is a nice standard size wrist because I added 1 to my 1 cup button along the back. In addition to that, I used the 2 DropDuos, and these are the smaller of the DropDuos in the white iris as well as the white Lila Vega luster. Also using 15-0s that are the Miyuki brand in the Galvanized gold, and then 11-0s just to kind of touch in the Galvanized Smoky mauve color of those 11-0s. If you don't want to bring in 11-0s, you could eliminate the 11-0s as well. Per component, depending what you want to do, you are going to end up with 20 of the DropDuos. Again, for your reference, I used 7 of the components, so I used about 140 of those DropDuos in addition to those 8 Montees and that 1 cup button. Again, if you need any of the materials, you can go back to the beginning of the video where we kind of list it all off for you. Also, you can go to the area below the video where it says the date stamp and who it was published by. If you hit the show more button there, you'll get links to all of the different products if you want to purchase them from us online from PotomacBeads.com, or check them out at PotomacBeads.eu if you happen to be in the EU as well. As always, if you like this video, you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give a little thumbs up if you like it and comment on what you would like to see and what you want to see more of. Also, any questions that you have, you can post there as well. Additionally, stay connected with us on Instagram and Facebook, as well as join our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. It's an awesome community that we have had the honor of creating. People that love to make jewelry, love the craft, and it's really a truly inspirational and fun group to be involved in. As always, hopefully this sparks your imagination, gives you ideas to go above and beyond this bracelet, and have fun creating if you get your hands on some of these DropDuos and the Montees to make the fun bracelet.